There is a quiet, heavy kind of heartbreak that lives inside the people who love narcissists. It is the specific pain of believing that if you were just a little bit softer, a little more patient, a little more understanding, or a little more forgiving, they would finally see you for who you are. You hold on to the belief that eventually they would change. You keep waiting for the day when the love you poured into them would finally come back to you, manifesting in the form of the person you always hoped they could become. If you are watching this right now, there is a very high probability that you have spent months, maybe years, or even decades living your life under that exact assumption. So, let me tell you something that might sting a little before it actually helps you heal. Kindness will not fix a narcissist. Compassion will not awaken them. Patience will not make them softer, and endless forgiveness will not transform them into someone else. The painful truth is that the more you give, the less they value what they are receiving from you. However, there is something that genuinely shocks them. It is something most people never try because it feels unnatural, terrifying, and even cruel at the beginning. Once you truly understand what this is, you will never look at your relationships in the same way again. Before we go deeper, if you are someone who is currently healing from the effects of narcissistic abuse, working on rebuilding your sense of self-worth, learning how to set firm boundaries, or simply trying to understand the complex psychological patterns that have controlled your life for far too long, take a moment right now to subscribe to this channel. Everything shared here is intentionally designed to help you reclaim your peace, your personal power, and your identity. Please subscribe, because what you are about to hear is not just information. It is the start of a shift inside you that cannot be reversed. Now, let us begin with the place where most people get it wrong. You were taught somewhere along the way that love conquers all obstacles. You learned that if you treat people the way you want to be treated, they will eventually rise to meet you on your level. You were told that if someone hurts you, it is simply because they are hurting inside, and if you can just love them through their pain, they will heal. These beliefs are beautiful and functional when you are dealing with emotionally healthy people. But narcissists do not operate on the same emotional frequency as you. They do not interpret kindness in the way you interpret it. When you offer a narcissist your softness, they do not see a gift. They see an opening to exploit. When you give them your forgiveness, they do not see grace. They see permission to continue their behavior. When you offer them another chance, they do not see your loyalty. They see your high tolerance for mistreatment. Every time you respond to their cruelty with understanding, you are unintentionally teaching them that there is no real cost to hurting you. This is the part that breaks people, because you are not being naive and you are not being weak. You are simply being human. You were doing exactly what any emotionally intelligent, decent person would do in a relationship. But the tragedy of loving a narcissist is that the very qualities that make you a beautiful partner, friend, child, or co-worker are the same qualities they exploit for their own gain. Your empathy becomes their playground. Your patience becomes their license to behave poorly. Your willingness to look inward becomes their excuse to never look at themselves. Slowly, without you even realizing it, you become the emotional caretaker of someone who has absolutely no intention of ever caring for you in return. So, why does kindness not work? Why does giving more, loving harder, explaining your perspective better, and trying one more time never produce the breakthrough you have been praying for? It is because narcissism at its core is not a misunderstanding. It is not a wound waiting to be soothed by the right person. It is a deeply rooted defense system built entirely on the need for control, a sense of superiority, and a constant supply of emotional reactions from the people around them. A narcissist does not really want a partner. They want a mirror that reflects them in the most flattering light possible. They do not want genuine intimacy. They want access to your resources and your energy. They do not want to be understood. They want to be admired, feared, needed, or pitied, whichever emotion gives them the most power over you in that specific moment. When you respond to their behavior with kindness, you are simply confirming that their system is working. You are proving that you will stay, that you will absorb their negativity, that you will adjust your life to fit their needs, and that you will keep showing up no matter how much they take from you. This is why you can apologize 1,000 times and still be the one blamed for everything. This is why you can explain yourself with perfect clarity and still be misunderstood on purpose. This is why you can give until you are completely empty and still be accused of not doing enough. The goal was never resolution or a healthy bond. The goal was always control. As long as you are emotionally engaged, emotionally reactive, and emotionally invested in fixing what they broke, they are winning the only game they know how to play. Now, here is where the shift begins. Here is where you start to understand what actually shocks a narcissist. And it is not what most people think. It is not revenge. Revenge actually feeds them because it proves that you are still emotionally entangled in their web. It is not screaming at them because chaos is their natural environment where they feel most comfortable. It is not making threats because threats just give them something to weaponize against you later. It is not trying to prove your worth, because the moment you try to prove your value to someone who refuses to see it, you have already handed them your power. It is not begging for change, because begging confirms their belief in their own superiority. And it is certainly not trying harder, because trying harder is exactly what they have conditioned you to do every single time they withdraw their affection. What truly shocks a narcissist is the one thing they spend the entire relationship trying to prevent. It is your emotional detachment. It is your quiet, unshakable, and fully reclaimed self. The moment you stop reacting, stop explaining, stop defending yourself, stop chasing their approval, stop hoping for a different outcome, stop performing for them, and stop needing them to understand you, something inside their internal world begins to collapse. Their power was never rooted in their charm, their intelligence, their success, or their words. Their power was always hidden in your reaction. When that reaction disappears, so does their grip on you. Think about that for a moment. Everything they did, from the silent treatment and the sudden bursts of affection, to the cruel comments followed by sweet apologies, the gaslighting, the triangulation with others, and the little breadcrumbs of love that kept you starving, was designed to keep you emotionally swinging between hope and despair. This is known as intermittent reinforcement, and it is one of the most powerful psychological bonds a human being can experience. It is the same mechanism that keeps people addicted to gambling. You do not stay because the relationship is good. You stay because the relationship is unpredictable, and deep down, that unpredictability creates a form of obsession. Your nervous system becomes addicted to the highs because the lows are so unbearable that you feel you need the next hit of validation just to survive. This is why you cannot logic your way out of a trauma bond. You have to starve it. You starve it by no longer feeding the cycle with your emotional reactions. You starve it by becoming so rooted in your own peace that their chaos no longer pulls you into the center of it. You starve it by realizing that every time you respond to their provocation, you are pouring fuel on the very fire that is currently burning your life down. Here is the part that nobody tells you. The moment you go quiet, truly quiet, not the quiet of punishment, but the quiet of genuine indifference, the narcissist will panic. They might not show it on the surface. They may even double down on their behavior. They may suddenly become charming again. They may rage. They may try to smear your reputation to others. They may send flying monkeys to pressure you, or they may stage a dramatic comeback that feels like the romantic love story you always wanted. But underneath all of that noise, there is a deep terror they cannot name. It is the terror of becoming irrelevant to you. To a narcissist, being unimportant to the person they have targeted is a kind of psychological death. This is where most people break down and go back. Because the moment the narcissist senses they are losing you, they will perform the version of themselves you always wished they were. They will say the exact words you spent years trying to extract from them. They will cry, they will make promises, and they will reflect just enough of your desires to make you believe that something has actually shifted. But you must understand this with every cell of your being. That performance is not transformation. It is survival. It is the narcissist protecting their supply, not the narcissist becoming a better human being. The moment you return, the mask comes off. Sometimes it happens within days. sometimes within hours, and the cycle resumes with an intensity that is often worse than before, because now they know exactly what it takes to manipulate you back into their control. If this is resonating with you, if something inside you is finally clicking into place, take one more moment right now to subscribe to this channel. The journey out of narcissistic abuse is not a single decision. It is 1,000 small decisions made every single day to choose yourself over the illusion they created. You deserve a steady voice in your corner reminding you that you are not crazy. You are not being too sensitive. You are not being too much, and you are certainly not asking for too little. Subscribe and let this be one of the daily anchors that keeps you grounded in your healing process. Now, let us go deeper into what reclaiming your power actually looks like in practice. Because emotional detachment is not the same as being cold. It is not bitterness, and it is not just pretending that you do not care. It is the moment your nervous system finally accepts that this person is not safe for you and stops trying to make a home in a place that has only ever offered you emotional storms. It is the moment you stop translating their cruelty into something more palatable to make yourself feel better. It is the moment you stop telling yourself stories like they had a hard childhood, they did not mean it, they are just stressed, or they are trying their best. It is the moment you finally let them be exactly who they have shown you they are, without constantly rewriting the story to protect your own fragile hope. Then the boundaries come into play. Real boundaries. Not the kind you announce, not the kind you threaten to enforce, and not the kind you constantly negotiate. Real boundaries live in your behavior, not in your words. A real boundary is when you simply stop answering the phone at midnight. A real boundary is when you no longer feel the need to explain yourself to someone who is clearly committed to misunderstanding you. A real boundary is when you stop attending the family events where you know you will be consistently disrespected. A real boundary is when you take back control of your financial life. A real boundary is when you stop sharing the intimate details of your life with someone who has only ever used those details against you. A real boundary is not a wall you build to keep them out. It is a standard you hold to keep yourself in a place of safety and peace. This is what truly destabilizes a narcissist, because they were never actually afraid of your anger or your arguments. They were always secretly afraid of your indifference. They were never actually afraid of your tears. They were afraid of your peace. They were never worried about losing the argument. They were afraid of losing the audience that fueled them. When you finally become a person who cannot be easily provoked, who cannot be guilted into submission, who cannot be flattered for empty gain, who cannot be shamed, and who cannot be manipulated, you turn into something they have never encountered before. You become someone they simply cannot control. To a person who desperately needs control to feel alive, your calm self-possession is the most disorienting force in the entire universe. Now, hear this part very carefully, because it is the section that truly changes everything. Your healing was never actually about them. It was never about teaching them a lesson. And it was never about waiting for that elusive apology that you will likely never receive. It was never about hoping that they would one day wake up and realize what they lost. The most powerful thing you will ever do is stop measuring your progress by their reaction. The moment your peace depends on their behavior, you have handed them the keys to your inner world all over again. The real victory is reached when you no longer need them to acknowledge the damage they caused in order for you to begin repairing it. The real victory is when you can hear their name mentioned without your stomach dropping or your heart racing. The real victory is when you stop checking their social media profiles, stop rehearsing imaginary confrontations in the shower, and stop waiting for a sense of closure that will never come from them. You have to accept that closure is something you give to yourself. You are allowed to walk away from people who only know how to love you in tiny, inconsistent fragments. You are allowed to stop acting as the emotional translator for someone who refuses to learn or speak the language of accountability. You are allowed to be tired. You are allowed to be completely done with the cycle. You are allowed to choose a smaller, quieter life filled with genuine peace over a louder, flashier life that is constantly filled with chaos. You are allowed to disappoint people who were never going to be satisfied with you anyway, no matter how much you gave. You are allowed to let them think whatever they want to think, because their opinion of you was never accurate to begin with. The more you live in alignment with that truth, the more you realize that the version of you they tried to break was the version that was always meant to outgrow them. There will definitely be days when you miss them. But you need to understand that you are not missing the real them. You are missing the fantasy of who they could have been if they had actually chosen to do the work. Let yourself grieve that fantasy. It was real to you, even if it was never real to them. There will also be days when the loneliness of the healing process feels much heavier than the familiar chaos of the relationship. In those moments, stay anyway. Stay with yourself. Stay rooted in the quiet, knowing that what you are building inside of your own heart right now is something that no one can ever take from you again. There will be times when you doubt your decision to leave. That is not a sign of weakness. That is just the trauma bond speaking in a voice that sounds exactly like your own. When you are making decisions about who deserves access to your life, listen to your healed self, not your wounded self. Slowly, almost without you noticing it, something inside you will begin to settle. You will stop flinching at the sound of a notification on your phone. You will stop replaying conversations from years ago that you cannot change. You will stop measuring your own worth by their absence or their fleeting attention. You will suddenly catch yourself laughing again, deeply and freely, without bracing yourself for whatever emotional disaster might come after. You will catch yourself trusting your own perception again. You will catch yourself choosing rest, choosing softness, and choosing yourself without feeling any shred of guilt. In those beautiful moments, you will realize that the narcissist did not win. They simply revealed the hidden territory inside you that needed to be reclaimed. This is what truly shocks them. It is not your rage, it is not your revenge, and it is not your success used as a weapon against them. It is your wholeness, your stillness, and your absolute refusal to be summoned back into their world by those old emotional hooks. It is the fact that you can wish them well and still want absolutely nothing to do with them. It is the fact that you can understand them deeply and still choose to walk away forever. It is the fact that you can love yourself more than you ever loved the idea of fixing them. That is the kind of power they cannot mimic, cannot manipulate, and cannot manufacture. That is the kind of power that finally ends the cycle, not just in this specific relationship, but in every single relationship that comes after. So, if you are standing at the edge of this decision right now, wondering if you have what it takes to stop pouring your life force into someone who will never fill you back up, understand that the answer has always been inside of you. You did not need to be kinder. You did not need to try harder. You did not need to love louder. You just needed to come home to yourself. Every single moment you spend choosing your own peace over their manufactured chaos is a moment that rewrites the story of who you are allowed to be. If this spoke to something deep inside you, take a moment right now to like this video, subscribe to this channel, and share it with someone who needs to hear these words tonight. This is a space built specifically for people who are done being managed, manipulated, minimized, and misunderstood. This is a space for people who are choosing themselves, perhaps for the very first time in their lives. Stay close, keep healing, and keep choosing the version of you that they could never quite break. The next time you feel that heavy pull to go back, to explain yourself one more time, to give one more chance, or to soften your boundaries just a little, remember this. They were never shocked by your kindness. They were shocked by your absence. And the most powerful absence you will ever create is the one inside their world. When you finally, fully, and unapologetically return to your own life, you become unreachable to those who only wanted to tear you down. The cycle ends when you decide it ends. You have the power to define your own existence, to set your own rules, and to protect your energy with everything you have. You are the architect of your own peace, and once you realize that, the narcissist loses every bit of power they ever thought they had over you. Keep walking forward, keep choosing your own truth, and never look back.